In the opening chapter of American history, one figure stands both brilliant and conflicted: Thomas Jefferson, a man whose ideas shaped a nation, yet whose life held deep contradictions. Born in 1743, Jefferson would rise from the quiet hills of Virginia to become the author of the Declaration of Independence, the third president of the United States, and a symbol of revolutionary thought. But behind the eloquent words and visionary ideals lived a man divided by the world around him. He spoke of liberty while living within a system built on slavery, championed equality while owning hundreds of enslaved people, and imagined a nation of free citizens while struggling to overcome the limits of his time. This documentary begins by exploring Jefferson not as a myth or a monument, but as a human being, complex, ambitious, flawed, and extraordinary. A thinker of the Enlightenment era, shaped by reason, philosophy, and the pursuit of knowledge. This is the story of a man who helped build a nation and the contradictions that followed him throughout his life. Thomas Jefferson's story begins in the gentle hills of colonial Virginia, where he was born on April 13th, 1743. The world he entered was quiet, rural, and shaped by the rhythms of farmland life. His childhood home at Shadwell sat between forests, rivers, and rolling landscapes that would later inspire his love for nature and architecture. Born into a wealthy plantation family, Jefferson's early years were surrounded by privilege, yet marked by the realities of the 18th century American South, a world built on agriculture, tradition, and the labor of enslaved people. As a young boy, Jefferson explored the outdoors endlessly, developing a deep curiosity for the natural world. He listened closely to the stories of his parents, learned the responsibilities of plantation life, and began forming the foundations of his character. These early experiences in the Blue Ridge region shaped the quiet, observant, and thoughtful child who would one day become one of America's most influential minds. This is where Jefferson's journey truly begins. As Thomas Jefferson grew into his early teens, the quiet hills of Virginia became the foundation of an expanding mind. Even at a young age, he displayed an extraordinary curiosity, studying the natural world, reading every book he could find, and observing people with a thoughtful intensity. By the age of 14, after the tragic loss of his father, Jefferson's world shifted. Responsibility came early, and with it, a deeper sense of discipline. He developed a hunger for knowledge that seemed limitless, diving into Latin, Greek, mathematics, and classical philosophy. The ideas of the Enlightenment began shaping him, filling his imagination with questions about liberty, reason, and human purpose. These early intellectual sparks did more than educate him. They set his life on a path that would eventually redefine a nation. In this chapter, we witness the awakening of a young mind, the beginning of Jefferson's transformation from a quiet observer to a thinker who would challenge the world around him. After adolescence, Thomas Jefferson moved from the fields of Shadwell into halls of classical learning. At age 16, he entered the College of William and Mary, a place where the seeds of enlightenment would deepen. There, professors exposed him to law, natural philosophy, and classical languages, sharpening a mind hungry for order and reason. Jefferson spent long nights translating Latin and Greek, measuring the heavens, and debating ideas that challenged tradition. By his early 20s, he apprenticed under the eminent lawyer George Wythe, learning the craft of law and the language of rights. These years were quiet but decisive. Study became habit, inquiry became method, and the tools of argument took root. The reflective boy from the Blue Ridge was transforming into a disciplined thinker, one prepared to enter public life with the books, skills, and moral vocabulary to shape a nation. By his early 20s, Thomas Jefferson was still shaping the tools he would need for the life ahead. Under the guidance of George Wythe, he continued refining his legal training with patience and discipline. At age 22 and 23, he spent long days studying cases, comparing statutes, and mastering the structure of colonial law. He listened more than he spoke, learning how justice functioned in practice, not just in books. Traveling between Williamsburg's courts and quiet rural homes, he began handling small cases, observing the concerns of ordinary Virginians. These encounters sharpened his belief that laws must protect everyday people, not simply the powerful. Jefferson kept detailed notes on every argument, building the analytical habits that would one day shape national policy. These were not dramatic years, but they were essential ones, steady steps from student to practitioner. Through careful study, quiet reflection, and growing confidence, the young Jefferson was preparing for a future he could not yet see, but was slowly beginning to build. In his mid-20s, Thomas Jefferson, now 24 and 25, continued shaping the disciplined habits that would guide his public life. His legal work grew steadily, bringing him into contact with planters, merchants, and farmers, who sought fairness in a world where courts often favored the wealthy. Jefferson listened closely to their stories, studying each case with a quiet precision that earned him respect in Williamsburg. He spent evenings refining his arguments, organizing his thoughts into journals that he guarded carefully. These notes reveal a young man determined to understand not only the law, but the responsibilities that came with it. During these years, Jefferson also began managing more of his family's affairs, learning firsthand the challenges of land, debt, and duty. Nothing about these days was dramatic, yet every hour added weight to his character. In the steady rhythm of work, study, and reflection, Jefferson was preparing for the next stage of his life, a life that would soon extend beyond law and into the service of the public itself. In the late 1760s, a young Thomas Jefferson steps into a new chapter of his life. At just 26, he enters the courts of colonial Virginia as a freshly certified lawyer, quiet in demeanor, but razor-sharp in thought. The era is tense, shaped by British authority and rising American frustration, and Jefferson studies every detail with the curiosity of a mind built for challenge. Inside dimly lit courtrooms, he argues his early cases with calm precision, relying not on loudness, but logic. Each ruling, each dispute, sharpens his understanding of human rights and the limits of power. Outside the courts, he spends long nights alone at Monticello, poring over Enlightenment works from Locke, Montesquieu, and Bacon, absorbing ideas that will soon transform into revolutionary language. By the age of 28, Thomas Jefferson is no longer just a lawyer. He is becoming a thinker shaped by justice, philosophy, and the growing storm of change across the colonies. The foundations of a future author of independence are quietly taking form. In the early 1770s, as tensions quietly rise across the colonies, 28-year-old Thomas Jefferson experiences a different kind of change, one shaped not by politics, but by the heart. It is during this period that he meets Martha Wales Skelton, a young widow known for her grace, intelligence, and love for music. Their connection forms naturally, built on shared tastes, long conversations, and the calm of Virginia's countryside. Jefferson, usually reserved, finds new warmth in these moments. At evenings in her family estate, they play music together, his violin, her harpsichord, filling the candle-lit rooms with a softness rarely seen in his busy life. These quiet exchanges begin shaping a bond that would anchor his emotional world. By the time he turns 29, Thomas Jefferson is no longer only a rising lawyer and philosopher. He is a man discovering partnership, companionship, and the stability that will support him through the turbulent years ahead. Before revolution calls him forward, love becomes the foundation beneath his steps. In 1772, at the age of 29, Thomas Jefferson enters one of the most meaningful chapters of his early life. On a cold winter day in Virginia, he marries Martha Wales Skelton, a woman whose kindness and intellect match his own. Their wedding takes place in the calm of the countryside, surrounded by family, music, and the soft glow of lanterns fighting back the winter chill. As they settle into their new life together, Monticello becomes more than an architectural project. It becomes their shared home. Jefferson spends long evenings refining designs, while Martha brings warmth and liveliness to each room. Their marriage is built on companionship, curiosity, and the comfort of simple moments. By age 30, Thomas Jefferson experiences a rare period of peace. The political storms gathering across America remain distant, just beyond the hills of Monticello. For now, he is a husband, a builder, and a man finding balance before history demands much more from him. These quiet years lay the emotional foundation for the leader he will become. In the early years of his marriage, 30-year-old Thomas Jefferson begins to step into a new kind of responsibility, the responsibility of family. In 1772 and 1773, the quiet halls of Monticello slowly fill with warmth, laughter, and the rhythms of a growing household. Jefferson spends his mornings refining the estate, while Martha brings life and comfort to every corner of their home. Their first child arrives soon after, and Jefferson, usually so reserved, shows a softer side. He holds the infant gently, aware that the world outside is changing rapidly, yet determined to create a place of peace within these walls. Evenings are spent in candlelit rooms, with Jefferson playing violin beside Martha, their music drifting into the cold Virginia night. At age 31, Thomas Jefferson stands between two worlds, his private life growing richer and the political storm of revolution drawing closer. These tender domestic moments become the quiet strength he will rely on when history soon pulls him away from Monticello. In 1773, as Thomas Jefferson enters his early 30s, the calm of Monticello begins to mix with the growing tension spreading across the colonies. At age 31, he watches the political climate shift, British authority tightening, colonial anger rising, and debates echoing from town halls to plantations. Jefferson listens, reads, and studies every detail, sensing that a pivotal moment is approaching. While he remains devoted to family life, the world outside keeps calling. He spends late nights at his desk, writing carefully crafted arguments against British policies. These early political writings, thoughtful and measured, reveal the beginnings of a statesman shaped by logic, fairness, and a deep belief in individual rights. By age 32, Thomas Jefferson is balancing two worlds, the peaceful rhythm of Monticello and the emerging responsibility of public duty. The first sparks of leadership ignite in him, shaped not by ambition, but by principle. The revolution has not yet begun, but the ideas that will guide it are already forming in his mind. In 1774, at the age of 32, Thomas Jefferson steps beyond the quiet comfort of Monticello and enters the Virginia House of Burgesses. The colonies are growing restless, and British policies push America closer to open conflict. Jefferson, known for his calm intellect, brings a measured but powerful voice into the chamber. He does not shout or demand attention. Instead, he uses precision, clarity, and reason to shape the debates around him. Inside these crowded rooms, filled with heated arguments and rising distrust of British authority, Jefferson begins drafting bold proposals. His writings call for unity, dignity, and the preservation of natural rights. While others speak with emotion, Jefferson speaks with thought, a young leader learning the power of his words. By the age of 33, Thomas Jefferson is no longer just a quiet thinker from Virginia. He is now an emerging political figure, respected for his steady judgment and unwavering principles. The path toward revolution is beginning to take form, and Jefferson is stepping directly into its early light. In 1775, at the age of 33, Thomas Jefferson becomes one of the clearest voices speaking for American rights. While the colonies grow increasingly restless, Jefferson turns his attention to a bold new document, a summary view of the rights of British America. Written from Monticello, it is both a warning and a declaration of dignity. Jefferson argues that the colonies are not subjects, but partners, deserving respect, autonomy, and freedom. His words spread quickly, earning admiration across the colonies and suspicion in Britain. Leaders such as Patrick Henry and Edmund Randolph recognized Jefferson's growing influence. Though not yet a national figure, he is becoming a thinker whose ideas shape the direction of the movement. By 1776, at age 34, Jefferson stands at the edge of a new era. The revolution has not fully begun, but its purpose is forming. Through careful reasoning and firm conviction, Thomas Jefferson is becoming more than a lawyer or legislator. He is becoming a guiding mind in America's fight for self-governance. The world is shifting, and his voice is beginning to rise with it. After contributing his thoughts to the early revolutionary discussions, Thomas Jefferson returns to Virginia at the age of 34, stepping back into the quieter rhythms of Monticello. The war clouds gather on the horizon, yet he turns his attention to shaping the legal foundation of his home colony. Jefferson begins drafting reforms aimed at fairness in property, inheritance, and governance, laws that reflect his belief in reason, justice, and natural rights. Evenings are long and thoughtful, filled with the study of philosophy, law, and history. Jefferson reflects not only on what Virginia should be, but on what a new nation could become. He discusses ideas with fellow reformers, consults old texts, and writes tirelessly by candlelight. By age 35, Thomas Jefferson is more than a lawyer or writer. He is a thinker preparing to influence the structure of a free society. Every quiet day at Monticello, every carefully penned note, is a step toward the larger responsibilities that the revolution will soon demand from him. In 1779, Thomas Jefferson, now 36, steps into one of the most demanding roles of his life, governor of Virginia. The Revolutionary War rages, and British forces threaten the colonies he has long defended in thought and law. Jefferson confronts this challenge with intellect and calm determination, coordinating militia, managing resources, and making decisions that will affect countless lives. Every day is filled with tension. Letters arrive from allies and adversaries alike. Jefferson balances the safety of Virginia with the ideals of liberty he has long championed. The burdens of office weigh heavily, yet he faces each crisis with the same careful reasoning that has guided him since his youth. By age 39, Thomas Jefferson emerges from these years tested, both politically and personally. Exhausted but resilient, he has learned the true cost of leadership during turbulent times. The experience deepens his understanding of governance, duty, and the sacrifices necessary to shape a new nation. In the early 1780s, Thomas Jefferson faces one of the most profound personal challenges of his life. His beloved wife, Martha Wales Jefferson, falls gravely ill and passes away, leaving him at the age of 40 in deep grief. The quiet halls of Monticello, once filled with music and laughter, now echo with silence. Jefferson retreats into study and reflection, finding solace in books, architecture, and correspondence. He immerses himself in the design and completion of Monticello, seeking order and beauty to balance the turbulence of loss. Letters to friends and fellow thinkers become a lifeline, sharing thoughts on liberty, philosophy, and the future of the nation. During these years of solitude, Thomas Jefferson, age 45, transforms personal tragedy into quiet strength. The experiences of loss and reflection deepen his empathy and resolve, shaping the man who will soon re-enter public life to guide his country through new challenges. In 1784, at the age of 41, Thomas Jefferson departs for France as the American minister, entering a world of grandeur, intellect, and political ferment. Paris, illuminated by gaslight and bustling with philosophical debate, becomes both his classroom and stage. Jefferson immerses himself in the ideas of Montesquieu, Voltaire, and other Enlightenment thinkers, expanding his vision of governance, liberty, and human rights. He observes salons, lectures, and diplomatic affairs, carefully noting lessons for the young United States. The early rumblings of revolution in France capture his attention, highlighting both the promise and peril of societal change. Jefferson, age 45, balances diplomacy with observation, writing letters home that reveal his growing understanding of international politics and the complexities of liberty abroad. By the time he turns 46, Thomas Jefferson has returned to America intellectually transformed. The experiences of Europe, the brilliance and chaos of French society, and the lessons of diplomacy have sharpened his vision for a nation still in its infancy. Monticello will await his return, but Jefferson leaves France a man deeply changed. Upon returning to America in 1790, 46-year-old Thomas Jefferson assumes the role of Secretary of State under President George Washington. The young nation is fragile, navigating foreign pressures, economic debates, and questions of constitutional authority. Jefferson, grounded in principle and reason, quickly becomes a leading voice, advocating for limited federal power and the rights of states. He finds himself in sharp conflict with Alexander Hamilton, the Secretary of the Treasury, whose vision of a strong central government clashes with Jefferson's ideals. Debates over taxes, banking, and foreign alliances dominate the political arena, and Jefferson works tirelessly to defend his vision of a republic rooted in liberty and civic responsibility. By the time he leaves office at age 55, Thomas Jefferson has solidified his role as a principal architect of the early American political system. His rivalry with Hamilton shapes the emerging two-party system, and his commitment to the principles of freedom continues to influence the nation's direction. At the age of 57, Thomas Jefferson assumes the presidency of the United States, bringing with him a vision of expansion, liberty, and cautious governance. His tenure is marked by the bold acquisition of the Louisiana Territory in 1803, a move that doubles the nation's size and opens vast lands for exploration and settlement. To chart this new territory, Jefferson commissions the historic Lewis and Clark expedition, sending them westward to map rivers, mountains, and lands unknown to Americans. Jefferson carefully studies their reports, balancing curiosity with governance and inspiring a sense of national purpose. His policies emphasized limited government, the importance of education, and the pursuit of scientific knowledge. By age 61, Thomas Jefferson has transformed the nation's possibilities. The United States stretches far beyond its original borders, and the vision of an informed, independent citizenry begins to take tangible shape. Jefferson's presidency leaves an indelible mark on the growth and character of the young republic. After leaving public office, Thomas Jefferson, age 66, retreats to Monticello, dedicating himself to study, writing, and the fulfillment of lifelong passions. The halls echo with memories of family, debate, and service to the nation. Jefferson continues corresponding with friends, presidents, and philosophers, sharing wisdom gained from decades of public life. He reflects on the Louisiana Purchase, the Lewis and Clark expedition, and the young republic he helped shape, considering both triumphs and challenges. Even as age brings frailty, Jefferson remains sharp in mind, devoted to architecture, agriculture, and scholarship. At the age of 83, Thomas Jefferson passes peacefully on July 4, 1826, leaving a legacy of intellect, liberty, and vision for the United States. Monticello stands as a testament to his life, and the ideas he championed continue to inspire generations. From colonial Virginia to the expanding nation, Jefferson's influence endures, timeless and profound.